So for step 17, the front uprights, well, this is going to be a pretty simple step. We've got to grab our A1 pieces, we've got to grab our wheel axles, and then we've got a couple of bearings. And so there are the bearings that come with the kit. There are our wheel axles and the A1 pieces. And of course, we are now into bag B. So I'll set this up and let's put these together. So if we grab one of our uprights, you can see that we need to put a bearing into there, which will push in to the bottom. And then we're going to grab one of our wheel axles and put it through. And there we go. It's done. Now, here's something that I find really interesting though. If you remember and have seen in my other build videos, I always say that when I'm using bearings, I don't use grease. If it's because they'll often show you the plastic bushing, they show you using grease, and I always say that when you're using the ball bearings, I just don't do that. Notice that because this kit is a full ball bearing kit, there is no mention of grease at this stage. We're putting the wheel axles into the ball bearings that are included, and the step is done. So even though that's kind of been my method, they're basically showing you that if you're using ball bearings, you don't need to grease them. So that's what I'm doing, because that's the way I've always done things. I just don't. If it's a ball bearing, I'm not using the grease. So there we go. There are our two front uprights built and ready to go. So step 17 is complete. So we're going to move on to step 18 now and attach the front uprights. So for step 18, attaching the front uprights. Well, there's quite a bit involved with this step and quite a bit of parts. So there are all of the hardware pieces that we need for this. And so we're going to install both the uprights on each side, and we're going to put in the axles. So we need to grease those up. And then of course these MB2, they're interesting. They're a sort of a hex top to them. They have to be screwed into the uprights, and you can see here, do not over tighten the MB2 so that the front uprights can move freely. So we're just going to have to be careful that when we're screwing those in, we're definitely getting them tight, but we want to make sure that the uprights can move freely within it. So I'll set this up and let's put this together. So let's work on this side first. So first off, you can see that we've got our drive cup. So we're going to put that inside of there. There we go. And then you can see that we've got our axle, and then we've got our hub itself, which obviously is going to sit like that. But in order to do this, we've also got to put on the A8 piece. So that's what this one looked like, which is going to sit on the bottom, just like that, sitting there like on that way. And you can see that that's going to fit inside on the front, just like that. And then on the top, there's nothing showing that needs to attach. So we're just going to slide that over that piece that we put in that pops into place. That, what is it? The little movable round piece that was in there. And you can see that they want you to use a 6, which was this piece here. And that's going to sit over top of that. And then we have the hex screw that had to fit onto there as well. Now, obviously, before I put that all together, we need to make sure that the axle is in and greased up. So let's do that. We're going to take our axle and we'll just grease this up. There's one side, get the other. Because they want you to grease up the ball part of the axle as well. Makes sense, because that's all fitting inside the cup. So if we stick that in the one side, stick the other in the other side, and then back down on the top. Just going to clean off my hands. So then if we take that piece that I was showing you earlier, only I've put the screw into the top of that as well. That's just going to sit on top like that. And we're going to start screwing that down. Now, I'm not doing the whole thing yet because what I want to make sure of is that on the bottom, and if we were to flip this over, we have this little piece now, the little tiny piece that is going to sit on the top of there. And we're going to use one of the hex screws again on the bottom side. Make sure that that's sitting okay. And again, we're going to screw that into place. Seems fine. Now, I'm going to screw it on the top a bit more now too. Now that seems to be fine. So we'll screw this side down too. And it's got the free motion as well. So you can see that it is screwed in tight, but I'm not over tightening so that this still has free motion. And so you can see at the top, same idea. It's got the free motion. This isn't even feeling tight. So that's great. So that side is done. So let's work on the other side. So now again, for the other side, we know that that's going to be sitting there like that. So this piece needs that sort of the ridge area facing down so that it's up like that, basically. So it's facing down. It's going to go into that hole. I've got to grease. I put a little bit, but I'm going to put a bit more on here just because while we slide that in. And we've got our cup. So the cup's got to go in there. There we go. Get our axle, goes in there. Let it fit inside of this side too. Make sure it's going on the right spot. And that gets popped back in. That's now going to sit on top. And on the very top, we've got this piece again right here that looks like that. That's going to sit over top. And then the hex tapping screw sits on the very top. And we're going to screw that in. Now, I'll screw it in more in a second, but I want to get the bottom one on as well. So that now can be attached here. Make sure that's going in straight. Yes. Okay, so now we're going to tighten this all up. And see how it works. So there's that. And let's tighten this one. Okay. So I know it says don't tighten because you need to be able to keep this free, but what I've noticed is if you take it to the end, and I mean you'll know when it's actually reached the end because it won't move anymore, they're actually not binding at all. Like this is really good. This is smooth. So I'm not worried about it being over tightened because there's complete motion here. So you can tighten that, and you can tighten the bottom one pretty much right to the end. You'll know, and you'll be fine. So that is step 18 complete. The front uprights are done. So now we can move on to step 19 and work on the rear uprights.